I find it funny to go into the comment sections of article like this because you see a lot of people going, more academia, more free speech, more intellectualism, more. And they're incredibly despaired. Like they're actually suffering an existential crisis, as if without this institution, mankind is pushed into darkness. Like, how can we know the secrets of the universe without the gender studies? How can we discover new trans surgeries without spending billions of taxpayer money in order to fund old university professors? And I tried understanding, like, why is this the case? Like, how did we get to the point where humanity believes that the only way to get knowledge is through the academia? Like, isn't that interesting? Because your grandmother didn't believe that. Her grandmother didn't believe that. And yet, for thousands of years, humanity has constantly progressed. Sure, and sometimes they progress slowly, other times they progress faster. But you can't say, when humanity invented the steam engine or when we started inventing railways or flight or anything like that, people didn't look at the academia and they worshipped it as if it's the church. No, people were looking at the academia. They were saying, okay, like, this is one of many pathways that creates critical thinkers. That was what the academia was creating, right? Like, it wasn't creating the science. It was giving the tools to certain individuals to be able to critically think, to be able to think outside the box, to think for themselves. And some of those have indeed managed to discover inventions to revolutionize humanity. Others were useless. And other inventions that did revolutionize humanity were done by people that didn't even go to the academia. And so, like, to the belief that this is, like, the only path to human knowledge, like the path that transcends everything else, is ridiculous. Or the idea that modern academia is the same like the universities from 60 years ago. They're absolutely not. Like, just because something is called a university and is the same building doesn't mean that the same teaching methods, the same capable teachers, or even that the teachers themselves have the same initiatives like they had 60 years ago. Like, if you have a teacher that back in the day actually wanted to create students that are capable of critical thinking and they actually wanted to pass the knowledge, what are they called? Well, they're called a university professor, right? Where did they work? At the university. And now let's compare it with a modern gender studies professor that's not interested in critical thinking, is interested in creating safe spaces, pushing for equity, and making sure that students become activists so that they destabilize systems of oppression. What is this person called? Well, a university professor. Where do they work? At a university. Are they the same thing, though? No. Absolutely not, right? But like, people are still comparing them as if it's the same thing. And then, like, they never look at the university as a business. Like, everyone looks at the university as if it's like an institution of learning, but they don't care about the fact that these university professors, they make a lot of money. And a lot of that money comes from the taxpayer. And so, like, the incentive of a university professor isn't necessarily to have good students. It's not to write papers. Like, a university professor is a human being. He can have financial incentives. He can have incentives about prestige. Like, he wants the other professors that may also have financial incentives to think of him as a good person. And in order to be viewed as a good person by your peers, you need to make sure you're not destabilizing the system. So it incentivizes corruption. And finally, is this, like, mind-boggling idea that I generally don't understand why it exists, when you can have a person that admits, yeah, a cop can be corrupt. Sure, like a police officer, he can be corrupt. A politician, yeah, you can buy a politician. Big Pharma can buy a politician. Yeah, absolutely. But for some reason, when it's a scientist, when it's a university professor, oh, they can't be corrupt. They can't be bought. And then they don't want to understand the fact that we live in a place where centralizing the science makes it easier to control. It's a lot easier if you just bribe a couple of people that are at the higher echelons, the people that are writing the protocols, the people that are writing the papers at the top. You bribe those and everyone else follows. Because if you bribe those, you're the government, right? And you use your taxpayer money to bribe those at the top. Well, the ones at the bottom, they have to follow suit. And we have historical arguments for this, like Lysenkoism. For those of you who are unaware, during the Soviet Union, you had this scientist that believed evolution and genetics are Nazi propaganda. Like, I'm not kidding. The science was new at the time, right? It wasn't settled. And they believed that everything that has to do with evolution or with genetics is Nazi bullshit. And so he created, his name was Lysenko, and he created an entire field of study that had only to do with socialism. So when you, the problem with science is that there is the theory, and like we need to make the theory sound nice. Well, it's really nice if plants also emulate socialist principles. It's nice if, nature itself justifies the existence of socialism. Right? Like, the plants aren't like the Nazis built around genetics and eugenics and shit. No, that's horrible. The plants, they like each other. They work with each other. And all of a sudden, you have that ideology. The problem is when you apply it and you get the farmers to do it and you realize that the ideology, even though it sounds nice, is incompatible with reality, and now you created a famine. Well, all of a sudden, science has consequences. And how did it get to that point? Well, it got to that point that the party, the Stalin, supported Lysenko, right? So, like, he supported top-down corrupt science. And from that top-down corrupt science, everything fell like domino pieces. If you are against Lysenko, you'd get fired or sent to a gulag. If you are praising Lysenko, all of a sudden you'd get promoted. And that's pretty much what scientism is. It's an institution like any other, and it has ambitions. It has political ambitions. It has financial ambitions. The idea that, like, science is, like, separated from humanity, and all university professors, like, all they want to do is they want to teach and they want to probe science. No, it's ridiculous. And also the idea that science can come from other places. Like, we live in a world where people have access to the internet. They have access to books like never before. You have your smartphone that can show YouTube how-to tutorials, and you can talk with other people around the world that study the same thing, and you start to have AI and shit. Like, any free thinker, any person that's actually thirsty of knowledge can achieve similar, if not better, results than going out of university. Like, you can educate yourself now. But for some reason, the government doesn't allow that because you don't have the credentials. Like, I know people that know how to code without stepping foot in a university. And they're coding a lot better than people in universities. And I even know places that actually don't want to hire people that studied at universities. Why? Because they told me, look, if I give a job to a coder, what I noticed after hiring 100 people is that the person that studied at the university requires hand-holding. Like, you're required to give him a step-by-step basis on how to do the thing. Meanwhile, a person that taught himself how to code, when he runs into a problem, he's going to try to fix it himself. In fact, he finds it a challenge. He goes online, talks with people, finds various spaces, tries to go on forums, and comes out with a solution for the problem by themselves. And so, like, I value people that are self-taught more than I value university graduates. But that's a small company, right? Like, big companies don't care about that. Big companies have HR, and HR wants the credential, because if the employee fucks up, then HR can say, well, I mean, he finished the university. How the fuck would I know that he was bad? Got a good degree at Oxford? I thought he knows how to code. And so, to go why Trump is actually going after universities, like, first of all, there's no free speech at universities. There's safe spaces. So they can't complain now, like it works complaining when you actually follow the system. Because if you follow the system and you're like, well, why is now the system unfair to me? Then people sympathize with that. And they will be like, yeah, why is the system unfair to him? Like, he did everything right. But when you're violating the system consistently and you're pushing for safe spaces and political correctness, and now you're being silenced, it's like, well, I mean, you just managed to find someone stronger than you, and that's why you're complaining. You're not upset because what's happening is immoral. You're upset that you're losing. But tough shit. People aren't so sympathetic. this is why when I was constantly exposing hypocrisy, I was getting annoyed when certain people were like, "Oh wait, V, like there's no point in exposing hypocrisy." Yes, there is, because now I can go back to the huge examples that I gave in the past, and I can say, no, these people fucking deserve it. They wanted to go political. They said everything is political, so they put it themselves up to a vote, and they lost. They played by their own rules. No one forced them into this, right? Like if universities were genuinely politically neutral and they were just like, okay, well, these are the studies, this is what you're going to have to learn, and they would create they would create students that are critical thinkers, no one would complain. But what they decided to do was to indoctrinate students, turn them into activists, punish any free thinking, punish people for dissent, remove books from libraries, so on and so forth. And I was like, oh, well, why is this happening to us? Well, it's literally what you did to others, but now someone stronger is doing it to you. I have no compassion, sympathy, or empathy. In fact, I'm starting to wonder if the taxpayer should pay you at all. Anyway, right, let me know what you guys think. And as usual, I will see you in the comment section. Take care.